Did you know that your life experiences can shape you into becoming something like a sociopath? While most people believe that personality types are determined by the genes you inherit, there actually may be a bit more to it than just that. From childhood trauma to the hobbies you pursue, there are a lot of ways in which a normal-seeming person can turn into something unfeeling and often more than a little nasty. So stick around until the end of the video and you'll know exactly what it feels like to step into the shoes of a sociopath and what kind of life experiences can lead a person to that sort of headspace. Number 10. They suffered childhood trauma. Besides genetics, the most common reason a person may start to display sociopathic tendencies is because of childhood trauma. While we may not always realize it in the moment, our upbringing can play a huge factor in determining the type of person we will grow up to be, and each and every one of us is at least partly shaped by our childhood. If you were raised in a toxic or abusive environment, however, or if you were exposed to something too early, it may have affected you more than you initially thought. Our brains can often seem strong and durable, but there are definitely things you can do to cause it serious harm. An example of this is trauma suffered while your brain was still developing, and the worst part is our brain may try to hide the extent of the damage from us. Children that suffer from PTSD often have a hard time remembering the details of the event, and sometimes they can forget the event altogether, which serves as a sort of coping mechanism. If a person has been shaped by trauma that makes them feel like they have to toughen up, they could start to show sociopathic tendencies as a result. Number 9. They were neglected. Human beings require a lot of care and attention when they are growing up, and this helps them develop proper social skills. Children that were neglected, however, often start to show traits of an antisocial personality disorder as they begin to mature. When a child is forced to fend for themselves, they start to prioritize survival instincts over relationship-building ones, which can make them seem cold or distant towards others. These people have a hard time letting go of their us versus the world mentality, and can best be described as lone wolves. Neglect can often have a serious impact on the psyche of a person, especially if it has been that way for a long time, and it can push caring people into becoming sociopaths as a way to survive. Number 8. They grew up around alcohol abuse. It is often stated that alcoholism is a disease, and like a lot of diseases, it hits the family hardest. Sociopathy is a tricky thing to predict, but children who grow up in homes where one or both parents drink heavily can often suffer from an antisocial personality disorder when they get older. Why? Well, as of now, many scientists are still trying to find that out. But there are a few compelling theories, one of which is that alcoholism can create distance between the drinker and their loved ones, and a child may unintentionally pick this habit up. Another theory is that drinking can often be an alienating vice, one that may cause you to become neglectful or even abusive to your kid. Abuse is a major trigger for sociopathic tendencies, so it makes sense that drinking and sociopathic children could be linked. Number 7. The care they received was inconsistent. When you are trying to train a dog to obey your directions, it is extremely important to be clear in the commands that you are giving, and to also be clear in what you reward and what you punish. Raising a dog and raising a kid may not have all that much in common, but this is one thing that they both have in common. When a person becomes a sociopath, it is often because they did not receive the amount of care that they needed in order to fully develop into a functional adult. But it can be equally as dangerous to be an inconsistent parent to your children. If you can't be present for your children and come and go from their life, they may start to feel like the relationship you share is more transactional than paternal. A transactional relationship is hard for a child to understand, and it can make them feel as if their feelings are being used against them. When this happens, the child may start to use relationships as a way to get what they want instead of trying to strike up a bond. Number 6. They have been rewarded for shallow behavior. The key difference between a regular person and a sociopath is empathy. Sociopaths can do some truly horrific things because they don't see human life as valuable, and they can't really put themselves in the shoes of others. Sociopaths can learn empathy, at least to an extent, but it is extremely unlikely they will try to do so if they have been consistently rewarded for poor behavior. If a neurotypical person does something they later regret, they will change their course of action if a similar situation unfolds again. A sociopath isn't reflecting on their actions in this way, however, and they are much less likely to feel shame or regret if they are directly benefiting from it. By the way, make sure to subscribe if you've learned something new today. Number 5. They have suffered a head injury. Many experts still debate how often sociopathy is acquired rather than passed down through genetics. A very strange way that a person can technically become a sociopath is if they suffer a certain kind of brain injury. There are many recorded incidents of people suffering a traumatic head wound only to discover that they no longer see the world in the same way, and this can be very jarring to the individual. Old medical procedures like lobotomy have always made it clear that damage to the brain can definitely affect things such as memory and thought. But being able to turn a person into a sociopath is definitely an unexpected result. Number 4. They never had to care about anything real. It may or may not surprise you to find out that people who grew up with a great deal of money are more likely to become sociopaths. The reason for this is because upper-class people do not need to worry about things like food, survival, or finding community in the same way the rest of the world does. This can lead to complexes where they feel they are better than others, and it can cause them to detach emotionally from others. Media has commonly portrayed the spoiled and wealthy child who can't seem to stop lashing out, and it is because they never had to care about anything that really mattered. If a child grows up valuing status, fame, or other sources of vanity, they can lose sight of important developmental milestones and accidentally isolate themselves from their friends. Number 3. They have a need for thrill-seeking. Sociopaths are often big thrill seekers, and this is because of a few reasons. For one, they enjoy the attention they receive from others when they perform dangerous stunts or make spur-of-the-moment decisions, and enjoy standing out as an individual. They also don't really see danger in the same way that the rest of us do, and that can cause them to find things fun that others might be too afraid to even attempt. People who grow up around extreme sports or are born into a family that is really into them may unintentionally turn to sociopathy if they aren't careful. Being into thrill-seeking is perfectly fine on its own, but the reason that sociopaths do it, to feel superior or to chase a high of danger, can be dangerous. Number 2. They feel left behind by someone in their life. Even if you are a full-grown adult, you are still shaped by those around you. When we are kids, we are shaped by our parents, and we take on a lot of their traits as a result. If they are toxic or neglectful, then it's easier for us to withdraw and start to display antisocial tendencies. As an adult, we don't really hang around our parents that much and don't care as much about their approval. As a result, we start to be shaped by our friends and partners, and if that relationship ends in a bad way, it could also cause you to withdraw. It isn't as common that a person becomes sociopathic when trauma is suffered as an adult, but it has been reported to happen. Number 1. They were always this way. All of these are common ways in which a person can display sociopathic traits, and they all have happened countless times to people all over the world. The most common way that a person becomes a sociopath, though, is that they were simply born that way. When most people experience the things we've talked about so far, they don't harden against the world, at least not totally, but instead try to find a place where they feel safe and understood. Sociopaths don't reach out for others most of the time, though, and as a result, they can really struggle to find a place they feel they belong. And if you like this video, then check out these related videos to see more. And make sure to subscribe and leave a comment saying, "I subscribed," and we will personally reply to your comment.